The wandering flame, reborn to shape the world. James Riker was no one special. He was just an average 26-year-old living in a small town. His life was simple and comfortable, working a low-level job in a tech support company, binge-watching his favorite shows on the weekends, and hanging out with his childhood friends. There were no huge dreams or goals that drove him. He was content with the slow, predictable pace of his existence. Sure, he often thought about how things could be different, about how he could maybe do something more with his life, but the daily grind was all-consuming, and change seemed impossible. It was a Wednesday afternoon when his life ended in the most mundane way possible. James was heading to the store to grab some snacks, earbuds in, oblivious to the world around him. A car, whose brakes failed, came barreling down the street. It crashed into the store sign, and before he could even react, debris fell, hitting him in the head. It all happened in an instant, and then there was nothing. James opened his eyes. The world around him was no longer familiar. Instead of the gray concrete of his small town, he was lying on the soft, green grass of a vast, open field. His clothes were different now, simple tunic and pants, nothing like the jeans and hoodie he used to wear. Above him, the sky was a brilliant blue, and the sun felt warmer almost. Magical. As he sat up, he realized he wasn't in his world anymore. What is this? He murmured, confused and dazed. He wasn't alone, though. A voice spoke in his mind, cool and authoritative. Welcome, James Riker, to the world of Arathorn. You have been granted a second chance at life, a rebirth in a world teeming with magic, monsters, and kingdoms vying for power. James blinked, trying to comprehend. Wait, I died. Indeed. Your past life has ended, and now you have been chosen to begin anew. This world, Arathorn, faces great peril. But you will have powers unlike anything this world has ever seen. It is up to you how you use them. James's heart began to race. Powers? What kind of powers? A surge of energy flowed through his body, and James instinctively raised his hand. Before he could even think about it, a small spark of fire flickered in his palm, then grew to the size of a fireball. He stared at it in shock. The power you possess is known as the Flame of Creation. With it, you can create and manipulate any form of energy or matter. No one in this world has such strength. Your magic goes beyond what even the ancient mages could dream of. James was still processing all of this. He had been plucked from his normal life, tossed into a world of magic, and given a power that could reshape reality. The possibilities were staggering. But one thing was clear. He wasn't going back. There is one problem in Arathorn, the voice continued. A dark force has begun to rise. The Demon King and his armies threaten to destroy everything. If you wish to change this world, you must either stop him, or you may choose to build your own empire, free from the chaos. James's mind spun with the information. A Demon King? Armies of monsters? This wasn't the kind of peaceful world he had imagined. But then again, this was a chance at a life beyond anything he had ever dreamed. James spent the first few weeks in this new world experimenting with his powers. He could create anything: swords, shields, entire structures. He could generate fire, electricity, and wind, all with a mere thought. He could even manipulate the earth itself. His magic wasn't just destructive, it was creative. With just a wave of his hand, James could reshape the land, forming mountains or forging rivers. The more he tested, the more he realized the extent of his abilities. And yet, despite all the power at his disposal, James didn't want to conquer the world. He wasn't interested in ruling over others or fighting wars. He wasn't the type to seize power for himself. Instead, he wanted to live a peaceful life, something he never truly had back on Earth. But peace wasn't so easily attainable. The more James explored Arathorn, the more he realized that every corner of the world was affected by the ongoing chaos. Bandits, monsters, and corrupt nobles ruled unchecked. People lived in constant fear, and entire villages were razed to the ground by the Demon King's forces. It was during his travels that James stumbled upon a small village under siege. The villagers were barely holding off the Demon King's forces, monsters and dark mages, wreaking havoc. The village elder, an old man with a frail body, begged for help. "Please, kind traveler, our people are dying, and the king's army is coming for us. We have no one left to protect us. Can you help?" James stood silently for a moment, feeling a heavy weight settle in his chest. He didn't want to fight. He didn't want to be a hero. But he knew what he had to do. With a sigh, he raised his hand, and a barrier of fire and stone encased the village, holding off the advancing forces. The monsters charged forward but were repelled by the flames, and the dark mages were unable to breach his defenses. James felt something stir within him, a responsibility, perhaps, or a desire to protect the innocent. With every wave of his hand, he summoned weapons, created storm clouds, and blasted through the enemy lines. The power surged through him effortlessly. When it was all over, the villagers were saved. They cheered for James, hailing him as a hero. But James, in his heart, knew he wasn't interested in fame or glory. He simply wanted to live. And yet, the more he helped, the more people came to him, asking for his aid. The villages, the kingdoms, everyone wanted his power. As time went on, James realized something. He couldn't escape the pull of his powers. The more he intervened, the more he became a beacon for change. People began to seek him out, not only for protection, but for guidance. The world needed him. But James wasn't just going to sit idly by and be their weapon. He would use his power to shape a new order, one where no one would have to live in fear. But the Demon King, Azrael, was still out there, spreading destruction. James knew he couldn't let this continue. If he wanted peace, he would have to end the war. And to do that, he would need to confront Azrael in a battle that would decide the fate of Arathorn. James's journey took him through ancient ruins, towering mountains, and deep forests. He forged alliances with powerful mages, kings, and warriors along the way, each drawn to his strength and vision for the future. But there were always those who saw James's power as a threat, who sought to take it from him or control it. It wasn't long before James realized something. His power was unmatched. And with it, he could do anything. But would he rise to become a tyrant, bending the world to his will? Or would he use his strength to stop the Demon King and create a peaceful future? The world of Arathorn was his to shape, and he would not let it slip into chaos again. As James stood at the edge of a cliff, gazing out over the vast, untamed lands of Arathorn, he realized that his true journey was just beginning. The power to reshape the world was in his hands, and now, it was time to decide what kind of world he would leave behind. Would he take the throne as the world's ruler? Or would he become the hero who saved everyone, vanquishing Azrael once and for all? The answers lay ahead, and with his powers, James was ready to carve a path through Arathorn's tumultuous fate, one that would leave its mark for generations to come.